Right, first of all, we're going to be talking about training and we're going to be talking about leadership. So, how many of you have heard of a company called Google? Alright, okay, so now let's just say that the CEO of Google, who is a good leader for Google, right? Right, now let's just take this person, okay? And now we're going to do a swap. And we're going to swap him with the CEO of Citibank. Alright, now here's the question. Do you think he'll still be a good CEO?
Yes.
No.
Different space.
Don't know, right?
No.
See, here's the thing. Citibank is a very, very different structured culture, right? Well, Google is like, whoa, dude, let's have some fun and be creative, man, and get some work done, right? Okay, isn't that, because they're totally different, right? So can you imagine going into Citibank and saying, all right, dudes, okay, let's go ahead and, hey, forget the whole accounting thing, let's just have some fun. Does that work? Okay, probably not. And they probably wouldn't do that. But still, the point is that leadership is not a thing that you teach isolated. And as Sasa was talking about, focusing on strengths is really the key thing. Right? So let's say, for example, okay, how many of you have like leadership culture, like leadership things where you've got specific competencies that you have to have for leadership? Anybody have those? Okay. Yeah, sorry, I don't agree with that. Okay, and it's, so here's why. Okay, let me just kind of give you why. Right. First of all, leadership competencies assume that everybody can essentially make the same leadership competency, right? And everybody can achieve the same thing in the same way. Okay, but we're not the same, right? We're not the same. Have you ever noticed that some people will just get it and they'll go, wham, boom, and they got it, and then the other people are struggling because they're trying to do it in your way. Have you seen that? Okay, and so now, does that mean that they're not good leaders or don't have leadership competencies? No, it doesn't. See, okay, so in the previous session we talked about colored brain, right? How you do things. Okay, not what you do, not why you do it. Okay, not your personality, how you do things. So your process of doing things, just even with just the genetic ambiguity relief thing, is very specific. Have you ever been in a situation where now, let's say for example, how many of you went to school? Okay, about half of you. All right, that's good. So you went to school. Did you notice that like there were some some people in the class and they like didn't have to study and they still got good grades? You know, you're thinking, wow, these people are super smart, right? But did they do that in all of their classes or was it just some? Because can you imagine if the professor is basically communicating and doing their structured class and everything in a specific way, people that have the same process, well, they get it. I mean, it's common sense, right? It's common sense. And then you get these other people that are like, what is he talking about? And and then you have to study harder. Doesn't mean that you're less intelligent. It just means you have a different way of interpreting and communicating information. Does that make sense? Okay? So, the other thing about leadership development is, number one, it's got to be connected to the culture. Think about it. If you don't know, if you're not connecting whatever training you're doing with your leadership development with the culture, or at least the culture that you're trying to create, you're spinning wheels without having a direction or an ultimate objective. Okay? Because the culture ultimately is what is going to run the entire organization and solve all of its problems. Do you know if you solve the culture problem, 50% of all those little things that bother you, all those fires that keep coming over and over and over again, are gone. But that requires leadership to be in line with culture. Does that make sense? Okay, so now, how do we do that? Well, basically we cultivate individuals' ideal leadership identity. So here's the thing, okay? You notice how sometimes, like in one group you're like super awesome and excited, and another group you're, well, maybe not so excited, not so super awesome, and maybe less confident, for example. Okay, so rather than trying to be everything for everybody, create environments that, well, first of all, get back to the safe environment, okay? But creating environments where you are supporting and helping people to find who they are at their best. Okay, because you'll notice, like for example, I had this one lady, okay? She kept telling me how, her husband was, always angry and stuff like that. And have you ever, been in a situation where maybe somebody complains about somebody? Maybe you're complaining about your husband or your wife, I don't know. Okay, but then one of the things though that she said after kind of probing was that her husband was very patient with the kids. So those are two different environments. So is the husband patient or is he not patient? That's the question, right? It depends on the environment. Does that make sense? Creating environments that support people to find who they are at their best and ultimately helping them to develop their way of being a great leader within the culture. Okay, now that was my 10 minutes. So any questions? That was a question. Does anybody have any questions?
I have one.
You have a question? I'm ready! Come on, give it to me, baby!
I just want to know where you draw your energy from.
Coffee!
Sorry?
Coffee!
Oh my god.
That's easy.
People drink coffee, but they don't have that energy.
Oh, I think it's the Balinese coffee, like there's a special
There
one
you
in
go.
Bali.
Actually, it's because I have a young wife.
It's very impressive to see your energy.
Thank you. Yes?
So organizations have multiple cultures. The CEO comes and goes, this is a new framework, each department is its own thing. How to create one culture?
Okay, so first of all, is it possible to create an organizational culture independent of a CEO?
No.
Stop. Okay, it's difficult. Okay, I will, especially if it's a larger organization, and a lot of times the CEOs have their own ideas and everything else. However, if you create now think about this, okay? If you create a winning culture that is already established as being productive, being innovative, where people are engaged, you have low turnover, do you think that a new CEO is going to come and try to screw it up? It's possible. I'm not going to say it's not. It is possible, but the chances are less because the CEO can then be indoctrinated into the culture just like any other employee. Okay? And that's a key factor, though. Indoctrinating people into the culture. When we do these culture change or initiatives, right? And literally, okay, within 80 days, you have a sustainable culture. Okay? Sustainable culture. 80 days, okay? I'm not talking years, because and the reason that it won't work if you have years is because people aren't that patient. Okay? You have to start showing immediate results so that they can see, oh, this is actually something that's working. Otherwise, if they don't start seeing immediate results, then it's like, oh no, not another management thing. Okay? And then they just check out, and then it's like an uphill battle from there. If you show instant results and it's bottom up where the people are actually creating the culture, then you and if you want to know how to find out all about the entire process of how to do that, is at culturechange.academy. Culturechange.academy. The entire process is there. Okay? Any other questions?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I have a question. You're talking about creating a culture, right? A lot of the organizations, when they go in for hiring, the first thing that they check for is an organizational fit. Do you fit into the organizational culture, right? If you say that we create an organization around culture or create culture with the employees and that defines the organizational culture, why is it that it is so common for HRs of organizations to come and say, hey, look, you're not aligned to our organizational culture? Is that something you think that should be changed, or do you think that still works?
No. Okay. Let me just ask you a question. All right. you have an innovation culture, a culture where you got people that want to, people break things in order to make them better, right? And you get somebody that's in there that says, oh no, wait a minute, what if we change this, it might not work, okay? Is that going to support the culture?
So the question I'm asking you is more specifically, I agree that organizations have some kind of a culture, right? But if organizational cultures are defined, innovative culture is a very broad term, right? Most organizations have a set of checklists which they look at in candidates when they're hiring, right? And they say, hey, look, these are the parameters we're judging you on as a candidate. You do not seem to check all the boxes. Do you think that's the right way to go? Because organizational culture of innovation is one paradigm.
All right. Checking boxes is very difficult to tell a real human being from checking boxes, in my opinion. Okay? Especially in an interview. First of all, you're never going to really be able to find the person in the interview. If you give people an opportunity to have some kind of a 1 or 2 month thing, then you can really tell, right? Because sometimes, some of the people are gems, but they're just kind of a little bit, they just suck at interviews, right? And sometimes they're scared, whatever, but they really they're very creative or very whatever it is that you need them to be, but they suck at interviews. So I don't agree that checking the boxes is good, but I do agree that organizational fit is essential to maintain and grow high-performing organizational culture. Yes?
Who is responsible for defining or forming this culture?
Wow. Okay, so in this particular case, first of all, remember, the CEO cannot be the driving force. Okay? Why? Because nobody trusts the CEO. Okay? Even if you think that the CEO is really cool and they're like, whoa, dude, you're awesome, there's still that barrier, that glass ceiling where you're thinking, oh my gosh, he's the CEO. CEOs have the open door policy. How many people actually go in the open door? Right? You've got this whole, it's a psychological barrier, right? So the CEO can't drive it because he's not common. And see, and that also brings you to these consulting companies, right? So you got Deloitte, you got McKinsey, and these organizations hire the smartest people in the universities, okay? To basically try to figure out what the common people think about. Does that make any sense? Okay? So it's the idea of you need to have the regular people drive the culture for the regular people and push it up. In this particular case, what we call key influencers, and this is different, right? You got this whole thing of culture ambassadors. You've heard that? Okay. The problem is that a lot of companies, what they do is they choose culture ambassadors that are very excited about the culture, right? And they go, "Oh, dude, have you heard about the culture? It's really cool." And then they annoy you. Right? They're just annoying sometimes, right? When in reality, the real influencers could be the tea lady that just listens to what you're trying to say. Or it could be that super hot girl in HR that just kind of smiles a lot and you're going, oh my gosh, what do you need me to do? I'll do it. Okay? Or it could be the guy that is making jokes all the time. Okay? And it could be anybody that you don't even realize. Okay, but they have influence. People trust them. Those are your key influencers. Yes, lady.
What I'm saying is more of an observation than a question. We speak about culture as if it is one, but actually there are subcultures, multiple subcultures in every organization. The best we can try is align them to the extent possible by having some, driving stories or,
I agree. There are subcultures within teams, within divisions, within departments, and of course that also connects back to the leaders of those departments. And ultimately, and the whole thing of values and everything is not really going to be people don't remember that stuff, right? It's not important to them unless they came up with it. See, again, going back to the idea of bottom up, are the people coming up with the guiding principles on how to behave within the organization to help each other create an ideal working environment. That's the key, okay? Helping the people across departments to do it to each other, for each other, and push it up to the CEO, okay, and the management team. And just to give you an idea, when we do these, we go and we work with, first thing we do is a discovery, right? So we find out everything that everybody's going to talk about and say and all the problems everybody wants, okay? Then we go to the senior management and we make our recommendations and negotiate, okay, we need this, okay, yes, no, this can be done, no it can't, we need this budget, no it can't, whatever, okay? Then we have guidelines. Then we take those guidelines and actually help them support or facilitate the people to create their own culture within those guidelines. After the people have created this, they've created their guiding principles, they created it, who owns it? The people own it, right? And then they present to senior management, this is what we want, this is how we want it, these are the things we want to change. And you know what the senior management does? And one day, immediately after the presentation, they say, okay. People go, what? What, you're not going to think about it, you're not going to run it by me, and why do they say okay? Because it was already predefined before the initiative started. And that perpetuates the motivation. Yes? Did that answer your question?
Yeah, right. So it is more about how it is lived rather than what is on the wall, and that comes from the bottom up.
Yes.
Right, thank you. So I have two questions. One, like what systemic issues can derail this culture transformation? Like for example, we need to follow a stupid process or a governance model which doesn't make sense to everyone. So that's one thing which we have been seeing all the time. The second one was the bottom-up approach which you are mentioning. Like many times when we try doing a bottom-up approach, it usually gets stuck in the middle. On the contrary, what I experimented was leaders transform first and attract others. That's what I experimented. Yeah, so these are two perspectives. So what is your take on that? Yeah.
All right, first of all, if you're developing the bottom-up, you're using the bottom-up approach, okay, and you're developing those key influencers as leaders, okay, those are the people that are going to perpetuate it. And then of course, okay, I mean, every 3 months, okay, I don't know, you guys, know these, like, there's this marketing thing, okay, for discotheques or bars or whatever, okay, so you got some really popular club, okay, and after 2 years, the club that's very popular shuts down, reopens with different decorations, everything else. Why? Because eventually it starts to decrease, and then they have to restart it and kind of get people excited again based on that idea. Same thing with culture, except that we do it every 3 months. Okay, people elect what we call the commander in general, okay, depending on what they want to call themselves. Okay, that ultimately those are the ones that are between the senior management and the people in order to achieve the culture that they want. But the best part about the bottom up, okay, remember, it only gets stuck in the middle if it takes too much time. Okay? If it takes too much time, that's where people lose steam. The moment that they start seeing, wow, this is working, we're actually achieving results. Look, people are actually starting to have more teamwork, they're starting to respect each other more, there's starting to be more trust. Okay? People get excited because they wanted that. That's part of their emotional foundation. And then what happens is that from there, it's like, whoa, okay, if this is working, well, maybe this is possible. Okay? And they perpetuate it. And then every 3 months, you just change the culture leadership, which is created from the people, okay? And get them to see what they're going to do and how they're going to implement and support the people. So this is culture by the people, for the people.
Yeah.
But in reality, sorry, just one last thing. In reality, a lot of what the CEOs want is exactly the same thing what the people want, they just name it differently. Go ahead.
And the systemic issues, like what systemic issues, challenges you see during this transformation?
Sorry?
Systemic issues, any system you have already created in the organization.
Well, go to, okay.
Yeah.
It's long, okay. Culture change.academy. Go there, you'll see the entire system, the process. It's actually easy to implement because the initial part only takes about 2 weeks.
Okay.
Okay? Sustainability takes 3 months.
All right. Thank you.
Yes, lady in the back? I'm taking too much time. Am I okay?
One last question.
Okay, one last question. This is it.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Bhavna. I'm from Indira School of Business Studies, Pune. So first of all, I would really like to appreciate the energy you got in this room, and I can agree that I can say that everyone agrees on that. So my question is that leadership basically takes a lot of things, right? Basically the failure stories. So how to keep the spirit alive while the leader is dealing with the failure himself?
Well, the spirit, okay, example. All right, do you play a musical instrument?
No.
No?
No.
MP3s?
Nothing.
Okay, let me just give you an idea, all right? So, I tried to learn the violin. Okay, first of all, I suck at the violin, but anyway, I tried. Okay, and so when I'm starting to learn the violin, it's really awkward because it sucks really bad. Okay, but then I learned a part of a song, right? I learned that part of the song, so now I have succeeded. Okay, which goes back to the whole gamification talk we did earlier. Okay, and now because I've succeeded, now I am re-motivated in order to go to the next part of the song. Okay, and then I get the next part of the song. It's like, whoa, I'm so awesome, even though it still sounds like a scratching cat. But and then finally, I get to play the whole song, and then that kind of maintains the level of motivation because I see myself making progress. Again, back to gamification, measurement, winning, and finding places for people to win. Does that make sense?
Yes, sure.
Okay, and that was the last question. Thank you very much.